Okay. All right. So we are recording now. So welcome to another episode of High Resolution Life. So I have two guests here today. We are going to talk about our experience with the March for Israel last Tuesday. Can't believe it's been a week already. And here I have Josh is here with us today. And I also have Aaron who is here. And we were all attendees at the March for Israel. So you guys can take a second to introduce yourselves so everybody people who listen to the podcast already have a pretty good introduction of who I am, me and all my craziness. But let's give them a chance to get to know you better. So, Josh, how about you introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on. My name's Josh Rultenberg. I am a national correspondent that lives in Washington, D.C., so I did not have to travel far for this rally, just a couple of minutes for me. I've been in Washington for a little more than a year. Basically, have been over the past couple of years getting to better know my Jewish roots and my Jewish tradition and family, what have you. And it was a tremendous experience, and I'm happy to talk more about it.
Awesome. Thank you. And Aaron, how about you introduce yourself?
And I'm Aaron Barthold. I am a teacher in New Jersey who also teaches at public schools and two synagogues. It was actually my birthday on Tuesday, and I thought no better movement than to go support my family and my friends by showing up.
Perfect. Yeah, that is perfect because I can't think of a better way than to celebrate your birthday with community. So yeah, yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I came in from Altoona, so there was not a group that was near me in central Pennsylvania. It was funny when I was there, I ran into someone who was from Alabama and he's like, Central Pennsylvania? He's like, there's Jews in central Pennsylvania. I said, yeah, not many, but we're here. That cracked me up. So I had to drive, and my friend came with me, my best friend, and she grew up outside of Washington D.C. So I don't mean to be someone who's overly cautionary. And if you see a cat, it's mine. She likes to be involved in everything, just in case. There's no earthquake here, but my cat just has no boundaries. um, so we drove in. Oh, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, way before my alarm, and we drove in and we took the metro in from McLean. So it was a little bit of an extra hike for us, but I felt it was really meaningful and important to be with community at this time. Because the conflict in and of itself is horrifying and really difficult to see from afar, but some of the reactions in our own backyard kind of concerned me. Thankfully, the community in Altoona, Pennsylvania has been super supportive. Like they were sending flowers to our local temple and, outreaching a lot, showing a lot of support. So that was really great. But my heart went out to see those who there was a lot of explosive reactions on college campuses to what's happening abroad. So for me, I felt there's nothing more healing than being together in community, and especially the broader community, people that came in from California, Canada. I saw some people from Colorado, Texas. So when I got there, that just reminded me of how important it was, and also it was a lot of fun doing that Jewish geography because I felt like the scene from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in the mailroom. I'm like, here, and we're connected here, and here we know here. It was hilarious, like doing that. What was that? Pepe everywhere. So, Josh, so that was my reason. I felt like it's really important to literally be together, and sharing that energy, is super important, especially in our faith background of being literally physically together. It's not COVID anymore. A minion doesn't count if we're all on Zoom.
Sure.
So, Josh, what was your reason and what was your motivation? Like, why was it important to you to be part of community on that day?
That's an interesting question because I can tell you if I was not part of the march itself, my job probably would have been to be there anyway, but in a professional capacity.
Hmm.
And I typically work like most Americans, Monday through Friday, and I saw that day coming probably a week prior.
Hmm.
But knowing that I had some friends that were coming in, and also just kind of recognizing the moment that we're in, and hopefully we don't find ourselves in too many of these moments moving forward,
Hmm.
I really felt like it was important to not cover this professionally and just be part of the Jewish community. And so that was a decision, thankfully, that my time off was granted for the day. And it was really special just to be there. amongst a group of people that were so loving, because the past month and a half has had its challenges, obviously,
Oh yeah.
not current news that's going on, but also just the polarizing reaction. And I think it's been somewhat shocking for the Jewish people that it's been such a polarizing reaction. And so just to find yourself amongst a group of people, and I say a group of people, I mean 290,000 people, that was shocking. Uh,
Right.
but all on the same page, and all loving, and there was no divisiveness, that I think was the most special thing. So it was really important for me to be part of that crowd in a personal capacity, and I'm really glad that I did.
Yeah, awesome. And how about you, Aaron? What were your motivations, or, what was the thing that drove you? Because, like, how far you had to go? Pretty decent amount, like upwards of 3 or 4 hours yourself, right? Kind of the same.
Closer 5 to 6.
Oh, oh, you win.
Closer
You win, Aaron.
to 5 to 6 hours.
Whoa.
Partially because of traffic. Uh,
Oh, yeah. And so
yeah.
what was that push that really made you? Was it sort of the same as Josh and I, or were there other things you could add as well?
It was needing to be with the community at that point in time, and
Yep.
in addition to, uh, the rally was about things that I agree with.
Yeah.
It was about bringing people home who were being held hostage. It was about all of those things, and for me, that's a really important cause to be there and show up for.
Hmm.
I believe that actions speak louder than words, and by being there, that was my action, to be there to be a witness, and
Hmm.
be there to observe and hold all of that, because that's a very important Jewish, brain fart on the word.
Like a
What?
concept, or
Yeah,
like a,
yeah.
yeah.
Like being there and bearing witness is very, very important in Judaism.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that was one of the things for me, was like, as a Jew, I need to be there. This is something that's calling to my heart, and I need to do this.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I see a lot of people are also within this dialogue. I think it's an interesting learning opportunity for a lot of people, because they're asking these questions of, well, why is such a large portion of Nobel Prize winners in the Jewish community? Like, why are so many Jewish people so inspired to go and do things and go do good out in the world? A lot of it is tikkun olam, and then a lot of it is also, most of our theology is just summed up in listen and go do good things in the world. Not because, you're going to go get to heaven from it or anything of that nature. But anyway, not to get preachy, and I'm not a rabbi, so I'm going to stay over in my lane here. But yeah, that's the sentiment too. It's like, yeah, sure, you say it, but what are your actions lining up with what you say? Um, so I arrived at about a little after 10 a.m. So when I first got there, it just sort of felt like there was a bit of a, I don't know, the air felt like there was an energy there that was just waiting to be filled in, and the energy was changing as there was more groups of people coming in shortly after 10 a.m. And it was funny, whenever I was getting to we were trying to find a place to go where the screen was at, so we could see the screen and sort of still stay in touch with what was going on closer towards the Capitol building and further down the National Mall, which is where the event was held, if anyone's listening that didn't really have any awareness of this event. So we were at the National Mall, and you could see the Capitol building, and then you could also see the Washington Monument. And the weather was perfect, was it not?
It was
It was
Like,
great.
gorgeous.
oh, it was amazing. So when I first arrived, there was just sort of just feeling the atmosphere, and I didn't really witness anything that was like hostile, any counter protests. I didn't see anything of that nature. So the energy was just really, there was a somberness, but there was also a little bit of this sort of humble joy at so much community together. So I would say that that was how I would describe that feeling to someone. That it was just a lot of spiritual, I don't want to say perfection because that seems like too much, but there was so much healing and so much positivity in that. How would you describe the atmosphere, like at the beginning of the event, throughout? Like, how would you describe that to someone who didn't get the emotional impact of the event? Maybe start with you, Josh.
Well, I think prior to the event, a number of people obviously were very concerned
Yeah.
about
Oh, yeah.
what exactly they were going to be walking into,
Right.
for different reasons. I think first and foremost, unfortunately, in America, anytime a large group of people gets together, there's always some sort of heightened concern about something happening.
Oh yeah.
And then also, just for the Jewish people, because there has been so much targeted hate, uh, you can dumb it down to as far as the last month and a half. But obviously, over the course of our long history, there's been different types of hate. But I think there were definitely concerns. I tried to voice that to some people that were knowing that I was going, or some people that were coming. I tried to put their mind at ease a little bit to say, when the federal government takes security very seriously and they do a lot of planning, and it actually happens in their city, in their district, the federal resources don't have to be deployed anywhere. They're there.
Yes.
And so they made this a level 1 event. And just from a security standpoint, it was great. From going in, I really didn't know what to expect, because I knew that there was going to be a stage and it was going to look as if it was this concert. And I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if it was going to be overly joyful. I wasn't sure if it was going to be more of like a morning type atmosphere.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
I had no idea. The only thing I knew, a bunch of Jewish people were coming from all over the world. And for those that have really been going through it over the past month and a half, I think that had a very cathartic and therapeutic feeling, that, you didn't have to necessarily feel alone because you weren't alone.
Yep.
Uh, so I can just tell you, I did show up similar to around the time you did. And again, I had no idea what I was walking into, but very
Yeah.
quickly I saw that there was a lot of love in the air. There were a lot of smiles, despite the fact of what the current situation was presenting. And then very quickly, when you started to mingle, you started to talk with different people, they were just very happy to have conversations with you, because it
Yep.
felt like so many of us maybe were holding so much in over the last month and a half. And it was just very good to see a similar face, a loving face, and really
Yes.
time with somebody going in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was because I don't know. I don't know if you guys how you feel, because I have a lot of friends who are not Jewish, not part of the Jewish community, and I often wondered like, oh, am I being annoying? Is it, oh, she's going off about the whole thing again? And like I'm like, oh no, am I that annoying friend? But being among community, like you said, I'm like, oh, okay, you get it. Yeah, you get it. Like, okay, I don't have to be like giving the whole backstory and then explaining. But Aaron, what were you feeling? Did you also have concerns going into the event? Did you also not quite know what to expect? Because I forgot to mention, I didn't quite know what we were expecting either. I had an idea, but how did that work for you, Aaron?
So I got there actually like 2 hours after you guys. I got there around 12:30 because long bus ride plus a metro in. Uh,
Ooh.
yep, yep. We parked way out there, and we were part of the large bus lot. Uh,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
yep. So we bussed in, parked there, and then because came in with Jewish Federation buses. Uh,
Nice.
so I got there around 12:30, and by that point, a lot of the interior section of the mall had already been filled in.
Hmm.
So our group decided to go off to the side, outside the
Hmm.
barriers, and walk up further
Yeah.
to join further up.
Hmm. And
Uh,
yes, there was already a lot of energy that was filling. So you came in at a different point. So I guess, yeah, Josh and I would have had a little bit more of a, okay, what's going on here? What's happening? So what was that energy after it had already filled the air? What was the feel, or what was the general consensus that you were getting hit with as you entered?
um, there was still a lot of energy. It wasn't necessarily as much nervous energy at that point, I feel
Yeah.
like, because most of the community was already there. We
Yes.
were already surrounding each other.
Yep.
Uh, the amount of police presence and everything else, we knew we were safe.
Oh yeah.
Like like I didn't know what kind of security we were gonna have going in. I like any of that, so we knew we were safe, and we felt
Yeah.
safe walking up to where we ended up. And I ended up being about 20 yards from you, which was lovely
Yeah.
because I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and there was like no, I didn't have any cell phone access. I don't know if that was just my carrier, but it was all completely gone. So I wouldn't have been able to check in with you anyway.
Same. I was trying to reach Josh. Actually, we were supposed to meet up,
Yep.
and could not because no cell phone service for hours.
It was, yeah, that was tricky. But for me, we're all around in the same age range. I know I'm getting old because I was like, oh, thank God nobody can call me. Nobody can text me. I was like, oh, I could just be in the moment. What is that meme they always have with like medieval people fighting? And they're like, ah, just living in the moment. But
Yeah.
for me, I was a little bit antsy before I went in because we took the metro in from McLean, and I was wearing I don't know if you guys saw the sweatshirt that Perio Ashenbrand was selling for fundraising. It says Am Israel Chai with a peace dove on it.
Yeah.
So I wore that. I'm like, well, there's no better place to wear that. We got to show our Jewish pride, show our support, and the devotion. I really love how she has the dove on that to show the devotion towards peace and not towards just endless conflict. Like we really want to find a solution to bring more peace, which is what I love about the sweatshirt. And I sat on the metro and I sat across from someone, and the Am Israel Chai obviously is written in Hebrew script. And I sat across from a woman and she was wearing a mask, and she looked at me. She said, "What does your shirt say in English?" Like, whoa, simmer down there, lady. I didn't even have any coffee yet. You got to coming in hot a little bit. I didn't even know her. And I said, well, this says Am Israel Chai. And she said, yeah, in English. I'm like, ooh, okay. Woke up on the spicy side of the bed today. I said, it means the nation of Israel lives. She didn't even say anything, didn't even say thank you, just looked down at her phone. I was like, oh no, I hope this is not a preview. This was in the metro coming in from McLean. I'm like, oh, I hope this is not a preview. And then it got a little bit worse, but it was a peaceful worse, if that makes sense. So I've been studying more biblical Hebrew because I'm really passionate about working on translation and working close with my rabbi about digging deep into Torah and really getting into as much as we can ascertain the true meanings of what we study in Torah, and I didn't want to waste my phone battery, so it's not unusual for me to take out my flashcards and study biblical Hebrew. I took it out and I was still sitting across from that same lady. My best friend observed this. This lady looked at my cards, looked at my face, looked down, made a yuck face, got up, went to a different seat, and got off earlier than the stop she needed to because she worked at the African American Cultural Museum.
Wow.
So my friend, she said, Annette, did you just see that? I was like, I thought she just needed to get off on her stop. And she said, oh no. She was like, you got judged. So it's like, but that was really the only negative thing that I had encountered. I didn't run into anyone that was combative. I didn't see any counter protests. I know there were some videos that people put up. And so that was the only negative thing. It was still oddly positive, even though it was negative. She just like left. So I'm like, cool. If you don't like someone, just take your energy away. That's fine. But Josh or Aaron, did you encounter anything negative in your time getting there or anything while you were there? Was there any sort of negative or counter energy?
Not that any I experienced, thank goodness. I was definitely concerned. Again, you just never know. I think the
Yeah.
one positive that, again, I can speak to because I live in Washington, and for my job, I'm constantly around lawmakers or the president, is I can see what real security looks like.
Yeah.
I am surrounded by the highest levels of security all the time, fortunately.
Yep.
And so I knew, again, that because this was in Washington and because of the stakes that were at play, I knew that this was likely to go off without a hitch. And thank goodness that it did go off without a hitch. I did witness on the left side, I guess if you're looking at the stage
Hmm.
to the left on the outside, there were a good amount of counter protesters, and it was
Hmm.
expected. I didn't think
Oh
that
yeah.
there were zero, but for the most part, kudos to law enforcement. Just for making sure that everyone, whether you were a protester or whether you were somebody that was marching, um, that everybody felt safe. Everybody has
Yes.
the right to a First Amendment in this country, so you have the right to say what you want to say as long as you're not causing harm to somebody else. And so I'm glad that everybody was able to say what they wanted to say, and
Yes.
so be in the crowd and feel safe at the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Some of my friends were trying to talk me out of going, and I'm like, no, I've talked with some people who are familiar with how security in DC is. This is if I'm going to go to anything with a large amount of the Jewish community, this is the safest thing I could be going to with such a
100%.
um yeah, high stakes. So I checked with my peeps and my some of my friends that don't really go to these kinds of events. They're like, Annette, don't go. I'm worried you're not going to come back. I'm like, guys, have a glass of wine in my name. It's going to be fine. How about you, Aaron? How did you have an experience with anything that was on the negative side or counter to what we were coming together for?
So I think there was a blessing in coming from the metro station that I came from, in that the entire cart was filled with Jews. And every single car was filled with Jews by that point because it was approaching when the rally was going to start. So we were
Yeah,
all getting off of these buses and going into this one metro station and just completely filling the cars,
nice.
which leaves little to no space for people. Like, as far as like percentage, if there was somebody that hated Jews on that train, I would not have known because there were so many people in that train.
That would
Uh,
have been a fun train ride for them.
yeah, the amount, like, it was no, not even standing room. It was packed. Uh,
Yeah, 'cause yeah, I remember like I had enough room. I was able to like spread my arms out at where we were, and then it slowly got smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm like, well, and I mean, I'm a claustrophobic person, so but I didn't feel like, ew, you're in my space, don't touch me. I didn't feel that way, even though I'm an introvert and I like my space. I don't know how you guys felt. It just felt really cool
yeah,
to me.
yeah. So
Yeah, that's
It,
good. So you did. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, it was definitely packed. You could
Yeah.
as one of the first couple people in, I was in the very front, very close to the stage. And at first, I was with a friend of ours, Aaron and ours, and we weren't sure how close we wanted to be because we
Yeah.
thought of exit and what that would be like. And if you're at the very front, you'd be the last to leave. But then
Hmm.
very quickly we started to notice the programming and sort of the pre-show, and we were like, oh, we want to be very close here.
Yeah.
So
N-
yes, I mean, you were standing so close. I know for 4 hours or so, my legs were just like on fire
Yeah.
because move at all. But I'm like, hey, you
Nope.
know what? What am I complaining about here when put into the true context of why we're all there?
Exactly, exactly. When all this had been put together so quickly and the details were all still developing, I wasn't even sure who was going to be there. So speaking of the stage, so you were closer up right towards the stage then, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then Aaron, you were like 20 yards behind me, and then I was behind that first screen.
yep, I was like diagonally behind you because we
Ah,
were outside the barricades,
yeah.
uh, closer to that library area.
Okay, yep. So I was a little bit further ahead. I wasn't inside the barricaded area where you had to have the blue wristband. So I wasn't quite in that. I was a little bit behind where the tents were. So that's interesting. We're all like one thirds divided of where what our experience was. This works out really cool.
Yeah, I was fortunate because I've interviewed some Jewish organizations here in DC that
Perfect.
they were nice enough to give me a blue wristband. That's the only reason I was that close.
No, and I think that's really good. Well, there was also a bit of a rumor going around online that people were paid to be there, but I do know that there were younger
Where
Jews who were what?
I didn't get my check.
I didn't get
Me
mine
neither.
either. Come on, we need to write somebody. Where's my check?
I know. I,
I had
I
I had my friend buy me like a some Starbucks egg bites for my birthday dinner while we were driving back. That's the only thing I got out of it.
Where I don't know where people even picked up that rumor. I know there had been a lot of support provided for the university students, but I'm sure all three of us are university educated, right? We all have
Yeah,
degrees.
yes,
Okay, I went and I did stuff in college and I got paid and I got support from people who were kind enough to support young students to give them opportunities.
sure.
I'm getting a little
yeah,
fired up. I don't know how that's any different, and especially with a lot of the things that university students have been going through at this moment, I think it's even more important for them to have that community. So I think you would have been closer in the midst of that energy, Josh. What was that like with the, younger generation of Jews going through this and how they were feeling through all this? What was your
Yeah,
experience up front?
you know what? It was really interesting. Not just even in that day, but just throughout this whole time. It's been interesting to watch the younger generation go through this.
Yeah.
You know, I guess fortunately for their generation, they have not had to go through something so catastrophic like this. I mean, I say that with the utmost sincerity. Obviously, there are things that continue to happen in the world, but not just a moment in time where you're literally just stopped in your tracks. And I think I can speak for all of us who are, I think, around the same age that, we all did go through that in our teen years when 9/11 happened. We all knew exactly where we were. The world stopped that day. And for subsequent days afterwards, and it's a trauma bond that we will forever share. But
Mhm.
the the younger generation, they've had to go through some different events with some mass casualty events that have obviously happened. But on this scale, where the entire world is paying attention, I don't know that they had to go through that. So to watch them just leading up to this event, it's been very interesting to see their response. But then to see them in person again, you didn't really know what you were walking into, if this was going to be some sort of it was designated a march, and we didn't
Mhm.
really march anywhere. So I didn't know, was this going to be a protest? Was this going to be a rally? You really just didn't know the atmosphere. So to see the young people with so much positive energy
Mhm.
was very enlightening to see, and very relaxing at the same time, because they say the youth is wasted on the young, and so you never really know how they're going to respond. And I'm
Right.
very glad that they went the direction that they did, as far as being very joyful and bringing a lot of positive energy to the situation. So really great for them to see them get everything out of it and be positive at the same time.
Yeah, that was really nice to see, like, what I was seeing from what they were telecasting. And Aaron and I had that experience of being a little further away, but that energy still really carried back to the
Oh,
rest of
sure.
us. So, yeah, Aaron, how do you feel like that sort of echoed back or sort of waved back out to us? Like, I felt that 100%. How did you feel?
I did too. It was one of those things. I think it wasn't just the front of the crowd and the younger kids that were up there, uh, but it was spread through the entire. Pretty much, I feel like everybody at the march
Oh, yeah.
had contributing energy to that, and you could just feel it around you. You could feel the solidarity. You could feel the joy. You could feel the happiness. You could also feel the sadness and everything else
That
that we went
support.
through that day.
Hmm. Yeah. Exactly. Well, you actually, this is a little bit after the rally, but you also had a joyful experience, if you don't mind me bringing that up. If you don't mind sharing that moment of joy that you had.
So I carried a sign that said, "It's my birthday, and all I want is to bring them home." So walking back with that, we're getting ready to go back on the metro to go back to the buses, and we're pausing to try and make sure we have everybody from our group there, counting heads. And this young group of men from a yeshiva came over and started singing "Happy Birthday" to me, just randomly out of the blue. got,
Ah,
got surrounded and sung "Happy Birthday" to, and then everybody else in the crowd also joined in.
oh, that's, yeah,
Uh,
that's gonna be one of those core memories, kind of like from what is that movie about the emotions? Oh my gosh, my niece has been
Inside Out.
Inside Out. It's like that's like one of those core memories from Inside
Yeah.
Out.
So it was comical. We've got video of it, uh, and I smiled for the first time in a while.
Oh, yeah, that is awesome. So like this is a good segue to go into those core memories. There was a lot of that joy that was really fun to be able to. If there's an opposite of trauma bond, maybe joyful bond, we need to come up with that. Let's
Sure.
let's do an opposite of that. But something that was really poignant for me, and I still get goosebumps, and I had posted this on my Instagram and my social media, was when everyone had come together and sang Achenu and also Hatikva, but it was more Achenu. And the way that it sort of reverberated through the crowd, we didn't even hear the stage singers anymore because it was really delayed. The echo would come back. So it was our own individual crowd singing Achenu, and oh, I still get goosebumps when I think of it and how the singing all swelled together. Upwards of 290,000 people. Maybe not everybody was singing, but we carried a lot of people through. So for me, that is a memory, just that crying out, Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael. We cry out in support for our brothers and our sisters going through this turmoil and this trial and in their pain and their grief. Um, but that sadness felt so supported at the same time. And as you had mentioned, Josh, there were so many Jews of different backgrounds and practices. There were Orthodox Jews near me. There were members of Chabad. There were people like me. It was so funny. I was around like the older guys. It was great. I had the commentary. Old Jewish guy commentary was great. Each politician and each person that would come up, what's this pastor doing up here? All of a sudden he cares about the Jews. And you know what? It was just great hearing all of the different, like, 290,000 different opinions from people. I had to stop from laughing sometimes. Like, what's he doing here? Oh, yeah, this guy's pretty good. I loved hearing that. But so those were some of the big memories I'm taking is that support and that supportive group. We were able to feel that grief and that collective joy and that hope, really. that we're going to move forward in a good direction, because we always do in the community. Josh, what's kind of like a core memory or something that really stuck with you throughout the experience that's really poignant?
Well, I would say there was more of an individual core memory and then just a group core memory. I think individually, so one of our friends, Aaron and I, and for context, Aaron and I met a couple of years ago randomly on a
Ah,
birthright. Uh,
nice.
we were some of the older heads to go on birthright. So we went with an older group, and I say older, like not like we're 70, but it was 27, 32-year olds at the time. But one of the really cool things about this march was that one of our group leaders of Birthright came all the way from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. And we made arrangements basically for the two of us to be together all day long. And so to be there with her, her name was Tori, and to watch her, she's studying to be a rabbi. And so to kind of see some of the events happening through her eyes
Hmm.
was really great to see because I can admit I'm not the most religious person, and obviously having somebody there that is trying to become, this omnipotent figure within the Jewish community, it was really cool to see her experience. So
Hmm.
to witness that with her, just on an individual basis, was really great. As far as the group experience and the crowd experience is concerned, there were a couple of moments that really stuck out to me. Look, every time there were these impromptu actions that happened within the crowd, whether you were talking about the hostage situation and everybody had like these flyers, and all of a sudden they would just go up. Um,
Yeah.
as it was happening. That was really powerful. And then you'd have these impromptu chants of bring them home, bring them home. That was something that really hit me in the moment because, you're thinking it in your head, but then all of a sudden you have thousands of people that are also chanting it as well. Really
Hmm.
just an emotional time to hear that. And then I think the most obvious for me, outside of the singing and the performances were really great, but it was to see these families that traveled here, these families that unfortunately, I mean, look, as Jewish people, we're all hurting right now, but I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like to actually have family right now that have not been home for a month and a
Hmm.
half or almost closer to 2 months now, and to see them pour their hearts out and to see them ask for just something to hold on to right now and to share their experience was really powerful to see. So kudos to them for showing up. Kudos to the crowd for showing the proper empathy that was needed in that moment. And I felt like when I was hearing them and then seeing the response, that's really where you felt the most bonded to everybody there.
Yeah, that was a very powerful moment for me, when the family spoke. And I'm not someone who likes to cry in front of people. I don't like that because I'm like, I'm trying to get attention. But I cried. My friend got to see me ugly cry because the amount of people around me that were brought to tears as well, just feeling that shared empathy and that energy. I heard women crying, I heard children, I heard men crying, which in the United States not really a big thing that men tend to do. So, but um, that was so impactful for me, to hear from the not just collective three, but the collective three groups of family members that were there. And that was really a core part of also why we were doing the rally. Like you said, it wasn't as much of a march, but we're still using it that way because I mean, what we had to get there anyway, so it works.
And
Uh,
I thought I'd just add one other thing. Sorry to cut you
sure.
off.
No, I don't care. Go for it.
Look, again, going back to what I do professionally, my job is to cover the lawmakers and the president of this country.
Hmm.
And to see a bipartisan group of lawmakers also on
Yes.
the stage was really interesting to see because, look, I can tell you without getting into the here, it does not happen often.
No.
Shocker to the world, I know. Like, you think we always get along, but it does not happen. And to see the leaders of both of the major political parties in this country coming together, when we don't have to be ignorant to the fact that is not the entire sentiment on Capitol Hill, but the fact that the major leaders were there to assure the Jewish people that you're not alone. And we are going to do everything within our power, because they do have real power, to support Israel in this time of need, to give the aid to those in the Middle East right now that do need it, that are suffering. It was really great to see that. So I know that I'm not typically allowed to have any sort of judgment on that situation, because professionally, my job is to just tell you what's happening. But to take a step back as a human being and an American and a Jewish person in that moment, it was really great to see that as well.
Yeah, exactly. That too. That's why I got that different commentary from the guys behind me. Oh, this guy. Oh, that one. And it was so much fun to hear that, because there were men that were more like on the conservative side, and there were men that were more on the liberal side. That I had to stop from giggling, because we were a little bit more in a somber supportive, but sometimes I just break down and be like, "What? You just said that."
Right.
It was like the two guys from the Muppets that would be heckling from the audience. I was like, oh my God, don't laugh, don't laugh. But I broke down sometimes. But I agree with you on that. It was great to see that bipartisan, aside from the peanut gallery sort of being like, oh, what do they care now for? Like, guys. But I had to join in sometimes when they were saying about that. But Aaron, I like that idea of like the individual and collective core memory. What were some of those experiences for you that are really going to stick with you from the march?
So one of the things I don't want to tag onto the bipartisan, we had Jews there of every aspect of life, every
Oh yeah.
country, location, and it is very hard to get Jews to agree on anything. The old saying, two Jews, 10 opinions, 10,000 opinions. And the sheer fact that there were about 290,000 Jews there, all agreeing that we needed to be there and stand up to bring hostages home and support family and people, is I don't know if I'll ever see it again.
I know. I was like, and Tori has really been, supportive to all of us as well. And,
Yeah.
wonderful. She's such a blessing. And, she's created a support group for us to be able to communicate and have nuanced conversation about it. Um, oh gosh, where was I going with that? She had said something, she put up a post of quotes from people who were there on her social media,
Yeah.
and I had left a comment. I said, when can we do it again? Like, how are we ever going to get to see a phenomena like that again among Jews?
For a good reason.
Yeah.
Let's do it for a good reason.
Exactly. So, so yeah, Aaron, I know the birthday, being sung happy birthday, would have been a fun core memory, but what are some
Yeah.
other memories that you feel you carry with you throughout that day in history?
I think the large group memory of besides the sheer numbers, but the singing was something that hit me
Mm-hmm.
really heavily. The family members speaking hit me very heavily. I cried.
Yep.
I'm not afraid to say it. Not ashamed to say it. I cried.
Yep.
Uh, and I hilariously also had the Waldorf and Stanler. Those are the two. I believe that's two names of the two Muppets.
I couldn't remember. Thank you. I was like, somebody help me. I can't. Yeah, you had those moments too.
Yeah, had those moments too, and it was one of those times where I was like, "Yep, this is right."
Yeah, exactly. Aaron, I'm not sure if your camera froze. I'm not sure if you're seeing the same thing, Josh.
I
A
am currently
little bit.
working on my battery went down, so it shut the camera off.
Oh no. Okay. I just wanted to let you know.
Better.
And we could, yes, you're good. Nice. Yeah. Now there were some things, there was a little bit, I don't know if you guys observed this, there was a little bit of crowd self-correction, I noticed. I know you had noticed it
Yes.
too, Aaron. I'm not sure if you experienced it that much, Josh. Did you hear any sort of crowd self-correction? You might know what I mean by that, like certain I'll explain this and you can piggyback off of this, Josh, but there were some factions of the crowd that were saying some chants that were a little bit not in line of what at least the broader crowd felt was in line with what the purpose of the rally was. Some people were getting fired up, and of course, this is all very emotional and a lot of tension. Some people were starting some chants that were more geared towards wanting to encourage violence, not at that event, but leading towards more military involvement and doing a little bit more decisive action. Um, but the crowd all self-corrected, at least in my experience where I was at, because it was something to the effect of, it used the word bomb, and I can't quite remember exactly, but it was bomb them out or something of that effect. And it was a group that we weren't involved. Like my crowd that was around me were like, no, 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 no. And they were like, no, 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 no. And people were trying to piggyback off of the no ceasefire, but people all kind of stopped and were like, oh, no, 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 we don't, this isn't really what this rally is for. And I heard people around me going, no, 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 no. Like they were trying to start a little bit more closer to a violent, but it wasn't a violent cry out. It was more encouraging military action. It was interesting to see the crowd self-correct and go, no, 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 no. And we all went, no, 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 that's not what we're looking for here. So Josh, Aaron, I don't know if you saw anything like that, but other than that, there was nothing that was like combative, arguing amongst each other. There wasn't anything of that nature. We all went, this is not, no.
Well, I think for those that weren't sure just about what this march was about, it was three main reasons why the march was held. It was a
Yep.
march for Israel, it was a march for the hostages, and it was a
Yes,
march against anti-Semitism.
exactly.
So those three things, I think the consensus were definitely all in support of. I mean, we don't have to be naive about the fact that it's hard to get two people to agree about the same thing, let alone 100, 1,000, thousands of people. So the fact that you could have so many people supporting those three causes was a miracle in and of itself. So
Yep.
that was really great to see. The one thing I did see when there were different speakers that were on the stage, there were different messages that were resonating in different ways. So again,
Yes.
I already described when there was talk about the hostages, you'd see the signs go up, you'd see the chants go up. There were at times, the one thing that I did notice, there was one speaker, and I don't have to name them, but there was one speaker that started to talk about not just the hostages, but also de escalating the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a polarizing topic, and we don't have to get into the weeds about that. But the one
Yep.
thing that I did see was when that topic was brought up, there were definitely people in the crowd, and there is definitely a sentiment as well when you're talking about Israel's response to this entire thing and the United States' support. We don't have to get into that again, but
Exactly.
there
Yeah.
are definitely people that are not ready for that right now. They don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
that portion of this entire situation is coming. And again, that is an opinion for everybody to have individually. What's
Exactly. Yep.
so I definitely did notice that. I think that I definitely heard the different chants that perhaps the presenter and who was speaking did not want to spur, but they definitely did happen. The only thing I would maybe push back on a little bit is I don't know if that I want to use the term self-correct, only
Yeah.
because everybody's entitled to their opinion. I
Yeah.
don't know that one opinion is correct versus not correct. Again, why it's so great to have us be Americans is because we have the freedom of speech. We have the right to say whatever
Yeah.
stuff we want to say, whether it's whatever. So I think it was great just from the standpoint of it did not turn violent. It
Yes.
did it did not promote a large sense of violence,
Yep.
because I also think at the same time that there are detractors of those that did not show up and perhaps were paying attention from afar as to what exactly was going to happen. And there are those that perhaps would have liked to have seen this event go off track. And
Yeah, I think that's what I mean by self-correct. Maybe just return the trajectory to the
yeah,
focus. I think, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I thought about it. I'm like, was that really the right word? So I'm actually glad you brought that up.
yeah, because look, there's a bunch of narratives out there. Social media certainly plays an aspect in this entire thing and painting certain pictures. And if you would have had that viral moment of something happening, that would have taken the attention off of the entire event. And for all the good that was done to get these people here for a positive reason, that would have been lost in that one moment. I can tell you, I work in news. You're looking for a split-second reaction to commemorate something that's happening, positive or negative, and that's
Yeah.
definitely taken away. But I'm glad it didn't happen.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I heard those chants going up. I think they were right between us from where we
Yes.
were, and I wouldn't have used self-correction, but I would have used like that small group of people were like publicly reprimanded. Like they knew the disapproval of what they were chanting.
It was like a diversion, maybe
Like
is a
more
good
like
word
a
too.
this is not the time to chant that. This is not.
Yep.
So it was more like a how you teach young children not to do something because it hurts other people, or right place, right time type situations.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
And that
because
was not they knew right away from almost everyone around them that that was not the place and time for that.
yeah, the focus was different. Yeah, and
Well,
providing
it was
more
almost
support.
more so, let's keep this peaceful
Yes.
and
Yes.
let's focus on those that are hurting right now. We
Yes,
don't
Hmm.
need
exactly.
to necessarily focus on anything else because there's a large enough issue at play right now with just the amount of people that are hurting.
Yep.
Yeah,
So let's just
exactly.
keep focused there. I think
Yeah.
that's really what the sentiment was. And so if you had a fringe amount of people that were thinking other things, the masses were saying, no, this is more about just that.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. So
Yeah.
that's more of the sense of what self-correcting was, but like you said, I don't want opinions to be swayed in one thing that one is correct and one is
Yeah.
incorrect. And I personally feel not being a citizen of Israel, I don't feel it's right for me to have an overly vocal opinion on which direction things should go in that way and just showing support for those part of the Jewish community that are living in Israel. That's where I'm at on that, and that was my larger motivation. So that's where I was on that one. But it was good to hear like what you said, Josh, that it didn't end up sort of pluming out or like building up more into something that could have been a little bit no overly detracting from what the purpose of the event was. So yeah, and something I find like some people who are not part of the Jewish community don't understand why it's important for American Jews or why it felt important for all of us to be there. If someone's confused, like, well, you're in the United States and you're Jewish, what does people in, Israel, Jewish people in the Jewish community there, what does that have to do with you and why did that make you go to the rally? How would either of you describe that to someone?
Yeah, that's a really that's an interesting topic to bring up.
Yeah,
And
right.
the only reason I say that is because this has felt like a different moment in time I'll just talk personally.
Hmm.
We have seen different moments and different movements that have happened over the course of our lives. And I can't speak for everyone, I can only speak for myself. And I have friends from all different backgrounds of life, different religions, different races, different, poor, broke, rich, whatever.
Right.
And there were different moments in time when I saw certain friends of mine that were struggling with certain world events that were happening.
Oh yeah.
And, I want to properly put this into perspective. When I saw them struggling for whatever it is they were struggling with, I wasn't asking a whole lot of questions. I mean, I was, but in the proper times. I was more so just trying to be supportive
Yeah,
of
yeah.
them and what they were going through. And when you see somebody's hurting, you don't question why they're hurting. You just see that they're hurting and you're supposed to just be there for them. I think
Ah,
I think unfortunately for the present situation and also in the past, there has always been this contextualizing of why the Jewish people are feeling certain pain. And is it substantiated that this level of emotion is coming out from the Jewish people or those that support the Jewish people? That there always has to be some sort of context that happens. And so, I've definitely experienced that over the last month and a half. On a personal level, I've had some people say to me, you live here in the United States, you don't necessarily have family that were that went through that experience on October 7th. I use the word experience for lack of better
yeah,
words.
right.
And you also don't have any family that are currently still displaced. And there was someone who had a quote in the crowd that day in Washington, and there was a question asked to that person saying, "Do you have any brothers or sisters in Israel?" And the response was, "Yeah, I've got 7 million, or I've got 7 million around the world."
Yep.
And so in that moment, I think it's important for people to realize, if you're not Jewish, that unfortunately, to use this word again and again, that there is this trauma bond that unfortunately just does not go away. For whatever reason, these things keep popping up to the Jewish community and the Jewish people around the world. And I think that unfortunately, this is what brings us together more times than not. So it would be really great of those that are not directly affected, that are not Jewish, to recognize this situation. And no matter how you feel about the war and the ongoing crisis, just realize that there are real human beings right now that have either been affected on October 7th or are still continuing to be affected. And there'll be time to diagnose this situation of how this started, why this happened, all of that. You can talk about that, and there will be a reckoning that comes.
Oh,
But
yeah.
for right now, because this is still an ongoing situation, just have some empathy.
Yep.
That's all Jewish people are really asking for. There will be a time for accountability, absolutely. And the Jewish people have some of the biggest questions about how we got here,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
The outside people are like, what is going on? How did this happen? You don't think the Jewish people want to know what the heck happened here?
Yeah,
I mean, we
exactly.
have some serious questions, and there will be self accountability
Oh, for
amongst
sure.
Jewish people and amongst the people in Israel. That is coming. It's just not coming right now. But people should not lose sight of that, that there definitely will be things that happen once this situation, hopefully ends and ends for the most peaceful way. So I know I went off on a bit of a tangent there,
No,
but
this is great. I'm like, nice. I'm like, I could just chill, take it all in. I don't have to carry all this. I'm like, nice. You go, Josh.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
coffee on me. Hit Cash App yet? No, I'm kidding. That's great. I love it. Aaron and I are just like, yeah, it feels like we just want to be like, amen. Let's go, brother.
And
That's awesome.
to Josh, I think for the American Jewish population, if you don't directly know somebody in Israel, in the Jewish community, you know somebody who knows somebody.
Sure.
It's less than the classic 6 degrees of separation. You're always 6 people away from something. We're
Oh, yeah.
pretty much one person away for the most part. So it's very real and very close for us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Aaron. Aaron and I, and I don't know if Aaron, if you were going to get into this, but our birthright trip was smaller than every other birthright trip because we went during COVID, and so instead of having 40 people in the group, we had 20, which made us just inherently closer. And I'll let Aaron speak in a second, but the leader, the group leader of our trip,
the tour guide,
he was he was back to his job for the first time because of the pandemic with our group.
Oh, wow.
So during the actual trip on the last night, he got very emotional. This was a couple of years ago, but he got very emotional about this trip in general and how he was so grateful to be back to work, but also to be with people that were very supportive, and we got along so well, and we all still kind of talk to this day. But he's one of the people, we don't have to mention his name, but he's one of the people that we know. I mean, it's not 6 degrees of separated. We know him. He has been displaced as a result of what happened.
Gosh, his house was less than 20 meters from one of the bus stops that is in the kibbutzim, where they've got images of people who were killed.
Yeah.
And he had just happened to be visiting family up in northern Israel that day.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, yes, are we not in Israel? No, we're not. But it's not 6 degrees of separated, like Aaron said. And Aaron, I cut you off before, so please continue.
Oh, yeah, no, I personally know people who have been affected. And I woke up, my friend was texting me, this feels like a 9/11 again for us, which is hard for us because we already went through that 9/11 experience of all of our families being terrified. Like Shanksville isn't that far from me. So we were all like at the edge of our seats whenever I was just 11 years old. I wake up, my friend's texting me like, hey, did you see what's going on in Israel? And I'm immediately going and jumping to who I know, because I know exactly where this person's family lives and a lot of experiences, a lot of video calls together while they were in Israel and everything. So like for us, it's very close. It's this close for a lot of us. But yeah, Aaron, I think you had something to add as well.
I'm trying to remember where my thought process was.
I was doing that too. I was doing really well. I had enough sleep and I had the coffee, and then I was like, yeah, I had to get it back a few times myself.
Yeah. Um, but essentially, it's 1 degree of separation, so it's
Yeah.
super important and super close to everybody,
Hmm.
which is, that's why it felt like it was so big and there was so much energy, I guess.
Well, and depending, you don't have to be, overly religious, because I think, I'm pretty close to you, Josh, in that I might not do a lot of the same practices. Like, I'm probably not the greatest person who keeps kosher and whatnot. However, I understand the cultural, what we carry with us with how festivals are celebrated still based on the calendar that was in Eretz Israel, and all the symbols, all the things that's connected to how we developed in our practice as a people is so deeply tied to Israel. And I think a lot of people who perhaps don't understand Judaism think that, oh, well, all the Jews in Eastern Europe just did their thing. It had nothing to do with Israel. The Jews in Spain did their own thing. It had nothing to do with Israel. And I think that's just people who just don't understand. And again, like we all said, half of half of the Jews in the world, not roughly half, are in Israel. So
Mhm. Yep.
so yeah,
Yeah.
and it's still the language that's spoken there is still part of the prayer books, and it's still something that we speak on a regular basis, even if we're not having regular conversations with people in modern Hebrew. It's still something that's part of the practice that we do and part of the what
Our
we've
prayers are
inherited.
thousands of years old, and our
Hmm.
holidays are
Yep,
thousands of years old.
and tied to Israel.
We tied to Israel, and we are told to remember, hey, we all went through this really, really tough shit. Pardon my
Yeah.
language,
No,
and
I don't care. You're good.
we need to stay together,
Yeah.
and that's the
Yeah.
important.
Exactly. And and I could speak of the experiences I've had with those who have closer ties to Palestine and those who are of the Muslim faith. And there has been support from people in those communities as well. I believe there was a speaker there who was Muslim, and there were members of also the Christian communities who I had seen a couple people as well. So that was really great to see. And also, I know people who are atheists who, like you said, Josh, are really doing well with holding space and just showing that empathy. I've had people who say, I don't know enough about this, but I'm really sorry to see you going through this. And I'm like, thank you. You know what? I feel seen. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's really the biggest thing because there, you know, unfortunately, with different big moments in our lives, we have seen these experts pop out of nowhere. During the pandemic, everybody became a doctor. And, you know, like this situation, now everybody is a historian. Or everybody is a politician, and so everybody's got an opinion, and yours is wrong. Uh,
Yes.
you know, so it's very great to see when you have people that admittedly are saying, okay, I don't need to pretend I'm an expert here, but at the same time, I do have a heart. And so I will leave the facts to the people that are trying to find them and as they develop, but I'll just show my heart and my empathy towards the very real people that are hurting, whether it is
Hmm.
the Jewish people in Israel, whether it's the Jewish people in America, whether it is the Palestinian people in Gaza, whether it's the people that have connections to the Palestinian people in Gaza. Everybody is hurting right now. No matter how
Exactly.
about the war itself, people are hurting.
Hmm.
So yes, it means a lot more when you see people outside of your cause that are there for you, because it's great when you see Jewish people and we all come together and we love that. But when you see somebody from the outside of a given community, it doesn't have to be Jewish, when it's whoever is struggling at the moment, when you see an outside person drawing attention and giving love and support to a cause or a group of people, that's really when it hits home the most.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure if you had anything to add to that, Aaron, like seeing it's not religious bipartisan. I'm still in like political brain here. I don't think that's the right word, but like
Yeah, that's what
Interfaith.
interfaith. There we go.
interfaith. Yeah, it was a So the one Muslim speaker was from Iran originally.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that gives her some aspect also and history because of her experience of living in that area of the
Oh,
world.
yeah.
Um, so the bipartisanship was interfaith.
Interfaith.
um, I saw a little bit of it in the crowd. Like I saw a few Christian groups, um, but not much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was definitely more on the speaker's end of
Yeah.
coming, which is still important.
Exactly. Yeah. There's all of that representation.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I don't want to take up any more of your time, so maybe we can wrap this up. And thank you so much, both of you. I really love what you had to add because I didn't want to just be someone talking at people. I wanted it to be more of a conversation. And what's great is we were all disconnected and didn't have the same shared experience, as in we were both all together. So thank you so much, both of you. I really appreciate you coming and sharing, and so we could help share this experience with others who weren't there, perhaps know nothing about it, those who wanted to be there in spirit. Um, so I guess to wrap up, I think it would be good to say, like, how did it feel to be present in such a historic moment? If what we have established is a historic moment, one of the largest or the largest Jewish gathering in the history of the United States Capitol, I
Mhm.
believe. So
Yes.
how overall, like, if you, dear diary, like Josh or Aaron, what would you like? And I already wrote a bit in my journal about it, but how is something you would convey? Say you've got the youngins that come up to you someday, like, how did it feel to be there? Well, how would you convey that to someone?
I think that there's going to be initial reaction right now, and then there's going to be memories years from now.
Yeah,
So, unfortunately, I mean, I don't say unfortunately, just the reality of the situation is you can only tell what you just went through because it was only a week ago.
exactly. Yeah,
But ask me that question again in a year, and ask me that question again when this is all over, and
yeah,
hopefully, sooner rather than later with the best resolution possible. But that day, I would say that there's different moments in your life where you're proud to be a part of something
hmm,
just for whatever that something is. But it was more personal because I feel like I've never been more proud to be Jewish in that moment. In America, it's different to be Jewish than it is to be a Jew in Israel.
hmm,
To be a Jewish person in Israel, you're just another person.
hmm,
And I remember even going back to our birthright trip, how unique that was. To all of a sudden, your whole life, you're a minority in a country, to then go somewhere where you're the majority. I tried to tell that to my black friends or my gay friends, like, hey, we're minorities in this country, but imagine going to somewhere on Earth or in the solar system where you're the majority. Like
yeah,
it's indescribable. So in that moment in America was, I mean, literally something we've never seen before.
yeah,
And hopefully we never have to see that again for that reason.
hmm,
It would be great to have a million Jews come together because, I don't know, somebody got married, the biggest Jew of all, whoever we crown that person to be. Uh, you know, Whoever the new Jewish Princess Diana is going to be, like, maybe that would be great someday to celebrate.
we need to get
Uh,
on this.
yeah, I'm trying. My mother and grandmother remind me every day. Uh, but uh, with that said, uh, look, it was great just to, as a Jewish person, it was the most proud I've ever been, because it is typically something we have to hide. But I took my necklace out that day, and I had on this blue representing the blue from Israel, and I was like, I'm not going to hide today. That God forbid something happens today, I'm going to be okay with knowing that my loved ones knew I was there,
Yep.
and I'm going to be okay with that. So to wrap this all up, I had never been more proud to be Jewish. I was so proud of our people for coming together, for it being peaceful, for us being united, and for the world to see that.
Yeah.
and for the world to see that while there is so much hostility that is happening, that at least for our group of people, that we could portray the message that we have been trying to portray. That it is simply just about the fact that we are hurting. It is simply about the fact that we want our people to be safe. We want our people to come home. That's what was most important about the fact that we stayed on message and we stayed as one. I think that was the biggest takeaway for me.
I love that. How about you, Aaron?
I have been describing it as awe-inspiring and inspirational and encompassing
Mm-hmm.
is the term I'd use. Like you were enveloped in the entire experience, from the feeling in the air to actually being there. And I had never been to DC before. Actually, that was my first trip to.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, and I'm a historian by trade, so I write large papers about these types of things.
So then you're part of it. So it's like, whoa.
So being a part of it was like, I can't even describe it. I know I can write about my experience and be used as a first person resource.
You're the resource now that people will be.
Yeah, I'm a resource now, but seriously, so it was just, it's still partially, it feels like the word undescribable
Yeah.
because of all the emotions and all of the energy and everything that came together all at once during those hours. And I
Yeah.
mean, the end of the day was a 6 hour bus ride home. So
Yeah.
that was like
Yeah.
somber enough also as well to sit and think about what had happened. That's
Absorbing all of that.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and for me it felt like an echo. For me, it felt like an echo of all the different moments in history where we've seen where it's not triumph, but it's still a triumph that the community came together, as you had mentioned, Josh, all these different practices, and also you, Aaron, all different types of background, because we're often all, well, are you really doing that right? Are you really doing that right? Like, should you be doing that? But we put all of that aside to show that support for community. And all those little things that we do in our tradition, our practice in the community, for me, it made it very meaningful. Like, oh, this is why, because of this that we've gone through, and this is another cycle of the things that we go through. So for me, it was just a great experience, and I think I want to say strengthening. I wonder if you feel like that would be something to help. It was strengthening because I felt helpless, like feeling like I wish I could go and I could do more from over here other than just put a nice little dove on my Instagram page or something. I'm like, wow, great, really did a lot. So for me, it was something
Yeah.
visceral to really be a part of and actually be there. And I would do it all over again, even though Wednesday was pretty rough. I'm sure you can attest to the same thing, Aaron.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I thank you so much to you both for taking the time out to have this discussion. And for me, it's like a fun little rehashing, not fun, not like it was a fun and light type of way, but it was really meaningful to have this conversation and compare notes and have a discussion about our experiences. So thank you so much, Josh, and thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.